Welcome to the fourth day of the St. Louis Regional Freightway's virtual FreightWeekSTL 2022. I'm Mary Lamie, the Executive Vice President of Multimodal Enterprises for Bi-State Development, which includes the St. Louis Regional Freightway as one of its enterprises. FreightWeekSTL is being held in partnership with the Inland Marine Expo hosted in downtown St. Louis. Yesterday, we had two great panel discussions. The first focused on the global connectivity through Union Pacific's dedicated rail service to the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, the largest U.S. port complex, and also introduced our audience to the operations at the Union Pacific Intermodal Yard in Dupont, Illinois. The second focused on significant investments underway at 3 Midwest ports and other infrastructure improvements being studied by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that will facilitate an increase in barge services and deliver cost efficiencies that drive profitability for the industry. Today, we shift our focus from waterways to interstates. Our discussion will focus on how the St. Louis Regional Freightway and Kansas City SmartPort are teaming up to demonstrate support for improvements to the Interstate 70 corridor from Kansas City to St. Louis. You'll also hear from a manufacturing company that relies heavily on this corridor for its domestic and global distribution. First, we'd like to thank our sponsors, starting with this year's presenting sponsors that include Burns McDonald, Castle Contracting, Ameren, Illinois, the Jerry Costello Group, and Crawford Murphy and Tilley. Our supporting sponsors are the Boeing Center, Design 9, and the Hauser Group. Associate sponsors for this year include the Southern Illinois Builders Association and Southern Illinois Construction Advancement Program, Terracon, and CDI. Joining me as panelists today are Chris Gutierrez, President of Kansas City SmartPort, or more commonly known as KC SmartPort, and Chester Jones, Manager of Supply Chain Operations for True Manufacturing Operations. Welcome, gentlemen. We'll start with asking each of you to introduce yourself and your organization. Let's begin with Chris. Chris is the president of KC SmartPort, a nonprofit economic development organization that works to attract freight-based companies to Kansas City. With more than 30 years of experience in logistics and international business, Chris has worked in the public and private sector in economic development. When the St. Louis Regional Freightway was being formed and was creating my job description, they looked to Chris and what he's doing in Kansas City and used that as a basis for many of my responsibilities I have today. Chris, tell us more about your role and give us a quick overview of Kansas City SmartPort.
Great. Thank you, Mary. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. As Mary said, we're a regional economic development group. We focus on 18 counties in 2 states that include 50 communities, so both Kansas and Missouri in the greater metropolitan area here of Kansas City, and specifically on businesses that have freight, so manufacturing, distribution, warehousing, and logistics. Our job is to sell the Kansas City region as our product to these companies that are looking for expansions or growth opportunities with new manufacturing and distribution. I've been doing this for a few years, and it's exciting right now that the Midwest, Kansas City and St. Louis, has got a lot of attention because our colleagues on the coast are having some challenges with congestion and labor issues that we don't see as significantly in the region. So it's great to be with you, Mary. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Chris. We'll turn now to Chester Jones, who manages the supply chain operations team at True Manufacturing. Chester is a former U.S. Marine, and he leads a team responsible for coordinating the company's overall supply chain, both domestically and internationally. He directs the day-to-day operations of specific company verticals and is responsible for the design and implementation of supply chains that support business strategies adapted to changing marketing conditions, new business opportunities, and cost reduction strategies. Chester, introduce our audience to True Manufacturing and your role with the organization.
Good day. Thank you, Mary, for having me. Yes, my name is Chester Jones, and I do manage the supply chain group here at True Manufacturing. True has been around for 75 years, operating at a headquarters out in O'Fallon, Missouri. They are a leader in the commercial and residential refrigeration space. We have operations in Latin America, Central America, Europe, and Canada as well, of course, is our biggest market here in the United States. So we use every mode of transportation. We are a vertically integrated manufacturer. Here we manufacture, most of our components, and those get assembled at various factories and go out through our distribution network. So True is a lot of our products are probably recognizable throughout grocery stores and commercial kitchens and airports. And so we certainly have a vested interest in the infrastructure of Missouri and logistics operations that make it easy for this community as well as getting us out to our customer base.
Okay, so our discussion today has been triggered by the Missouri Department of Transportation's recently released High Priority Unfunded Needs Report, which includes a financial placeholder to reconstruct and increase capacity to Interstate 70 between Kansas City and the St. Louis area. We're excited to see this placeholder on the list, even though it's a far off priority at this time. All of us here recognize the importance of the stretch of Interstate 70 from a global freight perspective as a transportation corridor supporting the global supply chain for aerospace, automotive, ag industries, and others. It provides a critical link to multimodal connectivity and reliability, and is part of the larger high-volume agricultural corridor that we featured during Freight Week last year. The Freightway's priority project list already includes multiple projects on Interstate 70 in the St. Louis region, and we've had some wins when it comes to securing funding. Examples include $62 million for the I-70 outer roads improvements from Fairgrounds Road to Cave Springs, and $39 million for the I-70 bottleneck improvements from Wentzville to Route Z in St. Charles County. A major contributor to that success here is the recognition of the key economic drivers along Interstate 70 in the St. Louis region. Those include the GM Wentzville facility, Boeing, St. Louis Lambert International Airport, and multiple fast-growing industrial sites. Chris, I know I-70 in the Kansas City area is also a priority corridor, and this is one of the many efforts we're working cooperatively with sister cities on opposite sides of the state to advance infrastructure improvements that will benefit both of our regions and communities between us. Tell us a little bit about this stretch of I-70 that serves the Kansas City area.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marion. Like St. Louis, the I-70 corridor is a critical freight corridor as well as passenger corridor for our region. Our greater Kansas City Chamber, our Council of Governments, the Mid-America Regional Council, my organization, all have made this a priority corridor for us in our long-range transportation planning. With focuses, of course, on the I-70 piece heading east from here to several of our outer roads, 435, Interstate 435 and Interstate 470. They're doing some preliminary engineering work on those. They've got design build models in place to expand and increase the capacity, as you said earlier. And as you said, Mary, this corridor is critical to us. It is our main east-west North American connector. Heavily traveled with both trucks and passengers. It's critical for us to locate manufacturing and distribution on this corridor that in some cases, you mentioned GM, we have a General Motors plant here as well. We've seen suppliers like Forcia that have located just to the east of downtown Kansas City to be able to supply both GM plants in St. Louis and Kansas City, as well as some major distribution centers that supply product, both consumer goods, e-commerce to the greater region along I-70. So it's an important corridor listed as a priority of all of the civic organizations focus on this. And we hope to see movement in terms of additional engineering and right-of-ways and other things to expand the corridor. We are a significant freight corridor here with both rail and highway moving freight east and west between two of the biggest cities in the Midwest, St. Louis and Kansas City. It has to continue to expand to meet the growing demand of freight movements around the country for companies like Chester's and others. So we're excited to see the focus and the priority placed on I-70.
Okay, thank you. So Chester, your company is one of many that has operations along Interstate 70 and really depends on that corridor. Tell us about your various facilities and how you are utilizing Interstate 70 to move between them.
Sure. Yeah, our headquarters sits right off 70 here in O'Fallon, and We often say here that I-70 is the heartbeat of true manufacturing, with facilities located to the west in Mexico, Missouri, and then down south in Pacific and north in Bowling Green. We traverse I-70 with about 88 trailers per day going between this facility and those facilities. Most folks are aware that we've also have an expansion project occurring south in Poplar Bluff, Missouri. And that means that, our daily transit around I-70, 270 will become somewhere in 98 to 100, 102 moves a day. So it's key for us to have ease of access and the ability to move quickly throughout the area. As well, we have a huge percentage of our employees that live west and southwest of here, and they come from Troy and Wentzville and that area, areas north of there on 61. And so really getting our workforce into our facility as well is key to us. So that positions a lot of our operations just up and down I-70 corridor daily.
Chester, great response. And our intention is, that we're going to use those types of statements and share them with MoDOT and our elected leaders to help them better compete for funding for projects like Interstate 70. Chris, you and I both serve on Governor Mike Parsons' Supply Chain Task Force. What can you tell our viewers about the task force and its purpose and anything coming out of it as it relates to Interstate 70?
Yeah, this task force is a critical kind of view into what's happening with global supply chains, and Missouri being, again, very critical to the overall network of freight moving globally. So again, the governor and the task force that we serve on is really trying to understand what's happening, why freight might be bottlenecked in certain places, why freight isn't moving as fluidly as we'd like. Kansas City hosted a meeting about a week or so ago and had the port director from the Port of Los Angeles as our keynote. And he talked about a lot of challenges, from growing demand from consumers to COVID to both steamship lines, railroads, trucking, and others really kind of all at once having their own issues, but kind of slamming together during COVID. But he said a very critical point on that the best and most efficient way to move freight in the U.S. is to locate your facilities in the Midwest, specifically Kansas City, and we'll give credit to St. Louis as well, because that freight will move fluidly. You don't have the bottlenecks. You don't have some of the challenges. And again, we all can suggest and hint that we do have some issues. None of us like to be stuck in morning traffic, but it's not like morning traffic on the coast or cities like Chicago. So again, I think looking at this issue, understanding how Kansas City and St. Louis and Missouri as a whole can compete and offer solutions to companies like Chester's and others to continue to move freight fluidly to customers. And Mary, we've talked a lot about the low inventory levels that companies have right now because of the demand and the challenges of getting freight. You have to move freight fast and efficiently into the warehouse or the manufacturing facility. They produce the product that hits the warehouse and immediately moves to a customer. There's not a lot of freight sitting in warehouse and manufacturing. Key to that is movement of freight along I-70. So we've got to focus on it. MoDOT, again, compliments to the state to be ahead of this conversation, to really understand our role in the global supply chain, and it's a critical role because of the highway infrastructure like I-70 and the rail infrastructure here. So I'm very excited about the task force. I think we've got a couple more meetings and we'll roll out some recommendations. But again, it's a privilege to serve with you on that, to make sure that people understand that these two critical cities, St. Louis and Kansas City, are working together to move freight inside and through the state of Missouri.
Thank you, Chris. Chester, you told us a little bit about your intercompany movement and how vital I-70 is to that aspect of your operations. But we understand you ship your products nationwide and globally. It's meeting the needs of businesses like yours that the Supply Chain Task Force focused on. Tell us about how your products move internationally and how I-70 plays into that.
Sure. We, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are shipping either direct to customers or to our distribution network throughout the country, throughout Canada, Europe, Chile, Mexico, the United Kingdom, And so we're using just about every mode of transportation out there: rail, LTL, ocean, air. From our Mexico facility, we ship most of our international goods. We're moving about 10 to 12 container loads a week, which, come back here to catch the rail spur out of St. Louis, headed east. So there's a significant amount of volume there. We also have about 20 to 30 over the road shipments per day from over the road carriers. And so some of the feedback we get from them is, they like the ease of the on and off exits from I-70, love the proximity to other interstates, 270, I-44, I-55, and they really hope that development continues on I-70 itself. So just with our operations going out to all of these different countries and areas, you can see that not only is, I-70 key for us, but significant rail. We certainly are interested in waterways as well. But those just to name a bit of the key areas that are very important to us.
Chester, are there specific international destinations you ship to?
Well, yes, specifically, we're going ocean most of the time. So we're going to Rotterdam, Netherlands, quite a bit of the time. We're going to the Felixstowe or Southampton port or Liverpool to get into Europe. And then we also are shipping to Australia. So we are leaving from Norfolk, New York ports, and then out in LA and Long Beach as well.
Thanks. So those are great examples, again, where we're focusing on the Interstate 70 corridor and then really what that connection provides to those global markets. So thank you. All right, gentlemen, is there anything else we haven't touched on that our viewers should know, or any final comments? Chris?
Yeah, Mary, I'd reemphasize again that our critical location in North America here in the state of Missouri and St. Louis and Kansas City is gotten a lot of attention from global companies. There's a commitment that in our region, freight and logistics is efficient and competitive. In Kansas City alone, you've seen record industrial development growth where developers are building spec buildings. We sent an email out recently that there was 16 500,000 square feet or bigger spec buildings in our market under construction. That was 2 weeks ago. I'll say it's probably half now because they've been spoken for. That's how fast the market is moving, and there's a shortage of buildings. So again, I-70 and the ability to move freight, as Chester said, on the rail lines or on the highway is critical to that continued growth. And I don't think it's slowing down. So again, I think the message to the viewers and the attendees of this conference is we are in a great place in the state of Missouri, and I think it's going to continue to keep going forward.
Thank you, Chris. Chester, any final comments?
Yes, I would like to say that we see continued growth. I mean, one is the recovery from the pandemic as things return to normal. And we see elevated levels of trying to get back to rediscover the supply chain and get it back. We see the ability to really ramp up. We have to look toward that future of ability to handle increased capacity in a shorter amount of time. So all of this development has to take in consideration what we've actually learned from a downturn and a recovery in a pandemic situation or other event that might occur. As far as true, our growth pattern continues. As the recovery turns, we are already looking forward to increasing our products, increasing our position. You can see that we're already expanding in Poplar Bluff to increase our manufacturing output capacity. So for us, things that continue that growth and the ease of transit and logistics is key to us because we're rooted here in Missouri. We are contributing to the logistics and the development of manufacturing activities, and so we're really on the upswing, I would say, and we like to see the infrastructure follow that path as well.
Alrighty, gentlemen, thank you. Today's discussion really underscores the significance of the I-70 connection between Kansas City and St. Louis and provides some insight as to why our two regions are partnering to raise awareness and advocate for funding for future improvements. As part of this collaboration, the St. Louis Regional Freightway and KC SmartPort today signed a memorandum of understanding based on our mutual interest in supporting the importance of reconstruction and delivery of additional capacity on Missouri's statewide I-70 corridor from Kansas City to St. Louis. Its performance is vital for supporting the global supply chains for many industries, from aerospace to agriculture, that rely on I-70 as a critical link to multimodal connectivity and reliability. The MOU will serve as a marketing tool under which both the St. Louis Regional Freightway and KC SmartPort will undertake activities aimed at elevating awareness of the economic, multimodal, and efficiency impact of the I-70 corridor and promoting improvements that will enhance the safety of travel along it. These efforts will help bring public and private sector leaders together to understand how infrastructure and efficiency impacts on-time delivery and cost. Today's session is a great way to kick off those efforts, and I'd like to thank Chris and Chester for their participation. And I'd also like to give a final thank you to our sponsors for FreightWeekSTL 2022. Their support makes it possible for us to continue to deliver the great content that is a hallmark of this annual conference. Freight Week wraps up tomorrow with the release of the St. Louis Region's Spring 2022 Industrial Real Estate Market Report and our panel discussion that focuses on 3 things to know about Illinois Route 3 in southwestern Illinois, during which attendees will learn how this 60-mile corridor has become a nationally significant heavy industrial corridor. We hope you can join us and encourage you to share links to any of our Freight Week content with others who may be interested.